All right, everybody, welcome into Around the Felt. I am your host, Reagan Loescher. We're here for the Week 9 recap. And here with me tonight, I got my buddy, Mike Greta, Eagles fan. Maybe some of you remember from the NFC East division breakdown. But here he is. Mike, how are we doing tonight, brother?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. I appreciate you joining me. Obviously, Colin will be out for the next 3 weeks with some work bullshit. I don't know. I don't really care. I'm just here to put out a podcast and give you guys some good content. So yeah, Mike, crazy week 9 we had, huh?
Yeah, it was really entertaining. I loved it. Even though we didn't get the best matchups and there are a lot of kind of sleeper games, it gave us a lot of cool moments like the Saquon Barkley one. And
Saquon Barkley catch,
the
or I mean Saquon Barkley one, Devontae Smith catch, Demarcus Robinson catch, Garrett Wilson catch. I mean, there was some incredible catches this week.
and then what I thought was the coolest was the handstand.
Oh yeah.
Those two ones by Drake London and Amon Ra, those are awesome. So
Yeah. Yeah, that was cool shit. Yeah, I was like, "What the fuck?" But also, man, a lot of injuries that we gotta talk about. First off, we'll get with the Cowboys. It looks like Dak is gonna miss several weeks with a hamstring injury, so not ideal. And then CeeDee Lamb also has a sprained AC joint. His is not considered serious, but, already missing Dak Prescott, and if CeeDee's to miss a game, it's it's gonna get bad in Dallas really quickly. So we'll have to see. I mean, we saw Cooper Rush kind of keep the ship afloat a couple years back when he had to step in when Dak had the terrible leg injury. So you got to show if you're Cooper Rush kind of why they gave you the money to be the backup and has kept you around this long. But I don't know. You're probably licking your chops as an Eagles fan for next week.
yeah, hope we get the win. But our every time in Dallas, the Eagles and the Cowboys always split 1-1. It's just always like that, but hopefully we can sweep them. So
Yeah, and great for fantasy football and the NFL. Christian McCaffrey's 21-day window has finally been opened. So looks like he will play again. He will not be retiring. He will not be sitting out the year. CMC will be back sooner rather than later. So for those of you that took him first overall or second overall, wherever you took him in your first round, you finally get to use that guy that you drafted early. So huge for fantasy there. And Jordan Mason, well, I think he still will have a role with this team. I don't think he's going to be like, I don't know if he'll be playable. I think CMC is going to kind of step right in and go back to his 80-90% of touches.
yeah, my fantasy great pickup, Jordan Mason. Might have to go to waivers again. But Garendo looked good.
Yeah,
The
that's another
first
thing too.
they
It
just have
just
so
seems
many
like,
guys that they're just a running back factory. So
yeah, that's for sure. I mean, that and Kyle Shanahan, just whoever he put in his system seems to be good. Other news, Dennis Allen has been fired as the Saints coach. I can't believe it took this long for him to be fired. After starting out 2-0, they have now lost 7 straight. So, and I don't think he's had a winning season once with the Saints. So, I kind of, when you lose to the worst team on paper in the league, it's probably time. I think this was long overdue with Dennis Allen. I don't even think they should have brought him back this year. But with everything being said, I think they'll end up moving on from Carr in the offseason. This will be a team with a new head coach and probably drafting a rookie quarterback.
yeah, kick the can with the NFL salary cap. I think they're 80 mil in debt
Yeah.
this year. I don't know what they're going to be next year, but yeah, it is not looking good at all for New Orleans. New Orleans fans, I feel you. Um, it's just after that two win stretch, Derek Carr, the savior of New Orleans, not anymore. But
Yeah. No, yeah, I don't know. And other bad news for the Saints, obviously, Chris Olave left with a really bad concussion. Just another one added to his resume. I mean, Buddy's putting up 2 numbers at this point when it comes to the concussions. So I don't know. He'll probably miss time. I wouldn't be shocked if it's multiple weeks. I mean, with the amount of concussions he's got, he may even be a candidate to be placed on IR. Very similar to Tua, like I said. So, just a lost season for them. They already lost Shaheed. Carr is just getting back. So and it just not a great time to be a Saints fan, if I may say so myself. And I believe that was it in major news. Um, yeah, that was really it. I mean, CMC being back, obviously, we're recording this on a Monday. Oh, and I mean, this isn't major news, but week 11, they swapped the Jets Colts out of prime time. They were the Sunday night game, and now it's the Bengals Chargers. So kind of took out two mid teams, put two other mid teams in. But at least with the other game, you get the Burrow Herbert storyline. So honestly, as a Jet fan, I'm happy. I hate
I
being in
don't
the
know.
spotlight.
Yeah, they don't want a Joe Flacco revenge game on prime time.
Yeah, yeah, it would have been
Yeah.
nice. It would probably have been they would have been glazing how it's like the oldest matchup between quarterbacks. You already know that. They're like, wow, this is the by far the oldest matchup we've had between two quarterbacks. So I already know that was going to happen. But yeah, that's all I got for the news. So I'm going to get into the questions. Unfortunately, Dave was not able to join us tonight either. He had some work issues or whatever, something like that. So we're going to start it out with Caleb here. He asks, "Is the passing game becoming less relevant in the NFL? We had two teams winning comfortably this week, Cardinals and Lions." He says, with 154 and 145 passing yards, respectively, from their quarterback. How can teams adapt and counter this sort of run game? Yeah, Caleb, I'll say it is starting to trend that way. I mean, and that's 2 weeks in a row where Detroit has been very low in the passing yards and just dominated and didn't need to throw the ball at all. Because I know the week prior they had 85 passing yards, or Jared Goff had 85 passing yards with like 4 touchdowns. So yeah, I think it's starting to trend that way. How are teams going to counter it? I think they're going to have to really reinvest in the D line because a lot of teams were like more worried about addressing the edge rushers, but these edge rushers are not run stoppers. They're edge rushers. So, I think teams are going to have to really invest in the draft and in the offseason in some of these beef boys to really stuff the run because I know my Jets and your Jets, we can't stop the run for shit. And, you go against a team like the Ravens, a lot of teams are going to get exposed because you have Lamar who's dynamic, but then Derrick Henry will run it down your throat. So I'm curious to see what you think, Mike. Like, what's the answer?
Um, well, the NFL defense, it's basically all just cover two. Don't allow the big play. Keep everything in front of you. So the passing yards aren't going to be down a little. Um, but you have to run. You have to run the ball. You see great success with Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, um, the Lions with that 1-2 punch. Uh, you just have to be able to run the ball, and the big plays will come. But it always starts with the run game.
Yeah, for sure. Next up, he says, "Can Cedric Tillman be trusted as a fantasy starter at this point?"
I'm not really sure. The Jameis Winston thing kind of died down. There was a lot of hype going in. I know I grabbed Cedric Tillman um, as like I just threw him on my bench, but I don't think you can trust him.
Yeah, I will
Moving.
say the past 2 weeks he has in half point scoring is 25.4 and 16.5. Obviously, last week, not a lot in the beginning, but it came down to garbage time. But at the end of the day, it's fantasy football, so you don't care how they get there. But actually, and prior to that, he had 14.1. So I don't know if you could trust him as like I think you got I think he's a trustworthy flex. I don't know if he'll keep this up. I mean, right now he's playing like a wide receiver 2, if not a wide receiver 1. I mean, and he's had 9 or more targets in the past 3 games. So with Amari Cooper getting traded, he's kind of emerged as that number 1 where it's funny where like before Amari Cooper left and early in the year, like through 6 games, he only had 5 targets. And then all of a sudden it just like quadrupled. And on top of that, I mean, he seems to have taken the role from Judy and Elijah Moore. Like they're the 2, 3, and obviously Njoku's there as well. But Tillman does seem like he's emerging as the number 1 there. So I think you keep playing him, keep riding it. And hey, if he has another good week or 2, you may be able to, sell high on him and turn him into an even better player. So next up, we move on to Colin, or I should say, Big Dog. He wants to know first, where do the Saints go from here? Allen gone, Carr getting bashed by Mike Thomas and Olave's brother. Seems like Carr's days are numbered. And they have no cap space to work with. So we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but I'm curious, like, what do you think the Saints should do?
It's bad. It is bad in New Orleans. Um, I honestly think they have to clean house, just kind of get everyone out of there. I know they fired Dennis Allen, but the Michael Thomas situation, it's just weird. Michael Thomas just hates Derek Carr, threw him under the bus multiple times. Um, and it kind of seems the only good player is Alvin Kamara on that team. Um, it's a rough one. What do you think?
Yeah, so I kind of think at this point you got to clean house. I mean, the Alvin Kamara contract's weird to me because it doesn't really fit the timeline. Like, I think that you don't
Yeah.
want to. Like, I get he's good for the culture and stuff, but at the end of the day, like this team is not even close to competing. I guess he's fine with never winning a Super Bowl and just finishing his career with the Saints. But I don't know. I would have thought try to get all those big contracts off, really focus on the draft, trying to rebuild this team, and anybody of value should be traded at the deadline. So, and I feel like with doing that and giving Kamara the extension, like now you can't move him at the deadline. Like what team in their right mind is going to trade for an older back on a who has 4 years on his contract now? Uh, so I would say, like you said, clean house, which they already got rid of Allen. So some new guy will come in with his new staff. You probably might not be able to get rid of Carr right away, so you can kind of use him as a bridge quarterback next year. I think it's easier to get out towards the end of the contract, but try to get anyone with value that has a bigger contract off your books.
Yeah, I
And just
mean,
fun. Oh, what were we gonna say?
they got some good young players on defense. Kool-Aid, Brian Brzee, just a couple good guys, you know.
Yeah,
It's just there's
yeah. I mean,
nothing
they
going
definitely
on
have
offense.
guys. Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong; like they definitely have some young talent. So next up, he wants to know where do you rank Tyrone Tracy among your rookie dynasty running backs? So I don't know. Are you in any dynasty leagues, Mike, or have
I'm
you?
not. I've never been in a dynasty league, but I was saying it during the year, like that's probably your steal of the draft,
Oh yeah,
like
fifth
going
round pick
into
right
it,
there.
because Devin Singletary, what was it, like a 1-year deal, 2-year deal? The
Yeah, I
Devin,
believe he's on a 2-year deal, but it's like, with
yeah,
the running back contracts, like
it's
it's
Devin
easy to get out of.
Singletary. He's never been like a
Yeah.
powerhouse running back, like a
No,
30
he had
30
one good year
plus
with the
with the
Texans and kind of
Texans.
parlayed that
Yeah,
into a
but
better deal.
yeah, he's top of the list. Like he looks really good, even as he
Actually,
was
it's a
like,
3 years for 16 mil. So it's very, that's
yeah.
very
Well, they
easy to
couldn't
get out of.
afford, yeah, exactly. So yeah,
So I would probably rank him. I mean, amongst the running backs in his class, like he already may be one in my opinion. I mean, obviously we haven't seen Jonathan Brooks yet, so I'm not going to rule him out. Bucky Irving's obviously showed some flashes, and outside of that, a lot of guys really haven't had opportunities. Like I'm trying to think, are there any other rookie running backs we've really seen that have taken over the backfield? Not really. So I was harping on Tracy like crazy coming into the year for underdog. I liked him a lot in Dynasty. I would say I'd probably rank him based off of his age as like, a back end RB1, top end RB2, just because of the age and, the potential. I mean, there's still guys like, the Bijans, the Brees Halls. Um, who else am I? Yeah, yeah, some of those younger guys, even Jonathan Taylor at this point. I mean, a lot of those guys that they still have a lot of good years left. Like even CMC, I'd probably still put above him, even if you only get like 2 or 3 more years, because I don't know what Tracy's ceiling is, but I'd say back end RB1, low end RB2, or high end RB2. But yeah, that's all we got for the questions tonight. So why not? Let's just get into the matchups, man. I mean, we'll go through all the games. Obviously, Steelers and Niners were on a bye, so we're not going to talk about them. And then the Bucks Chiefs is going on right now, so that's another one that we will not be talking about. So I'll recap that on the predictions. But let's start out with Thursday night. My Jets, they get it done finally. I don't know if I would have been able to deal with 2-7, but they finally get it done. They get the win over the Texans, 21-13. It was ugly to start, down 7-0 at halftime. Jets gonna Jets, Malachi Corley, just let's
he
go of the
pulled a
football.
Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, it
Sent him
was,
home. Let's go.
it was something else. So I'm sitting there and then, then the Texans come down and score and it's just like, the same old Jets doing the same old things. But you know what? We get it done. Rodgers had the huge game. He had 3 passing touchdowns here. Devontae finally gets in. He was 7 for 91 and 1. Garrett Wilson was 9 for 90 and 2 and had an incredible one-handed catch. I mean, that's like I'm not going to say it's better than OBJ, but it's definitely in that tier of like one-handed catches. And then on the Texans side of things, I mean, CJ Stroud, terrible game, 11 of 30 for 191, 0 touchdowns, sacked 8 times. I will say Joe Mixon, he dominated again. So if you were to draft him in your fantasy leagues, I mean, he's gone over 100 yards and a touchdown in every game outside of the one he got hurt. And obviously he's missed some time. But I mean, if it wasn't for Derrick Henry, like we might be looking at this guy as the number one fantasy running back this year. I mean, he's been such a steal for where you got him. And yeah, Tank Dell, I know we were kind of not sure what to expect with him, but he didn't disappoint. 6 for 126. So huge game for him. But, the Jets needed this a lot more than the Texans. They get it done, keep their season alive. I think they can afford maybe one more loss at this point, but I think 10-7 is kind of the magic number to get in. And the Texans, you know what? Yeah, you lost, but guess what? The Titans got the win. They get their second win, but the Colts and the Jaguars lose. So you're still up 2 on the Colts, who's the next closest team. And you got the head to head because you won both matchups already. So, they're kind of sitting pretty in that one spot. I don't think see them losing it. So it's all about, what seed are you going to get? Are you going to be the 4 seed or can you get all the way up to the 1? So outside of that, but this is a team that'll be in the playoffs. So just got to get the offensive line right.
Yeah, this
But
was a
what
big
were
game
your
for the
takeaways?
Jets. This was a big game for the Jets. You don't want to fall to 2-7. You get to 3-6, and like you said, it wasn't CJ Stroud's best game, but no Diggs, no Collins. You knew he's kind of struggle. The MetLife turf. It kind of seems every good young quarterback struggles there. So um, Adams got a touchdown, so that's big.
Yes, he did. He
Yeah,
finally
so
did.
I don't know. I am an Adams holder in fantasy, so I want to see them kind of ramp it up. I mean, the chemistry they came in right away, and it was a little shaky, but I feel like the Jets. They have the Cardinals next week. That's gonna be a tough game.
Yeah,
Cardinals
for
look good.
sure.
I'm gonna get to that later. They look really good.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Colts, Seahawks, Dolphins, Jaguars, Rams, Bills, and then Dolphins. So it's a tough schedule, but
Not
what do you
impossible,
say? They
but
have
yeah, tough
to
schedule.
make the playoffs. You say they have to win how many games?
I would
They have to go 10
say
and 7.
you probably have to go 10-7. I mean, maybe you get lucky and get in at 9-8, but a lot of things would have to go your way.
Exactly.
And with us already losing to the Steelers, who I think will be in that kind of that wild card spot, the Broncos we lost to as well. So, that's why I feel like it's more 10-7 because, some of the teams that are going to be around us have the head to head. And if you beat the Colts, that'll be huge, but that's one like that's actually a must win because it's another team will be battling with the wild card. So, like, if that's one of your losses, not only are you losing, but you're giving them the head-to-head advantage if you do have the tiebreaker. So I would say 10-7 at least.
And they basically have to win out.
Yeah, you have
And
room for
the
one
one game
loss.
that I just don't see them winning is going into Buffalo and winning that Bills game on the road. So, I mean,
Yeah,
we'll have
no,
to
that's going
see.
to be a tough one.
It's right by New Year's, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, yeah, maybe we'll get lucky in Buffalo. We'll have that 2 seed locked up, and like,
Yeah.
yeah, let's let Josh Allen
Do it for
rest.
Zach Wilson, who was falling backwards on his ass last time. So,
Yeah. Oh man. All right. Well, let's move on. The Atlanta Falcons beat the Cowboys 27-21. Kirk Cousins finally gets it done against a team that's not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He had 222 passing yards, 3 touchdowns.
roommate set the fire alarm off.
Oh, let me pause.
Never happened before.
No, Mike just
There we go.
made some history here, setting off the fire alarm. So
Let's
sorry to
go.
anyone who had that 3-second ear rape, but we're back after the pause. Yeah, so Bijan, big game here. Drake London leaves with the hip injury, but had a touchdown. Mooney had another good game, so he seems to be a fantasy steal. And I know with London, they said it shouldn't be too serious, so I would imagine he'll be back next week. Cowboys side of things, not a whole lot to write about. Dak didn't look good all game and then left with the hamstring. Zeke wasn't even active in this one. It was the Rico Daddle show, so he's keeping his job. So if you took him, he's fully taken over. And CD also just 8 for 47. So you don't love it. I know Micah Parsons obviously didn't play in this one, so but I'm curious, what are your thoughts on this, Mike?
Yeah, the Cowboys look really bad. Like they look not coached. They look undisciplined, and they just look like they lack talent all over the board. Get back on that Zeke Elliott thing,
Hmm.
he's missing meetings. That
Yeah,
screams like I don't want to be on the team. I don't want to be here and trade me. And then Jerry Jones, his great pickup, Dalvin Cook, was the 12th man on the field on a fourth down. So this team is clearly uncoached and just basically are just giving up. It just looks like. Um, I had my TV on that game because I knew it was going to be like the best game, and the Cowboys just did a dud.
yeah,
Um,
they did not show up in the slightest.
yeah, and there was a play to Jake Ferguson. It was going to be a screen pass. I think they were down 14, and it would have been a 60-yard touchdown if he caught it. But Matt Judon knocked it away, and big third down stop right there. But I feel like if you had caught that, we would have a different discussion right now. But the Falcons, they're a good team. I feel like you
Yeah,
gotta
they're
gotta
six
give
and
them
three.
respect. Yeah.
A
They beat
and they
they
got the
beat
head-to-head
Miami.
against the Bucks, so if the Bucks lose tonight, I mean, they're up a full 2.5 games then, which is
Um,
or I'm sorry, not 2.5, a full, 2 games with the head-to-head, so,
mm,
you know.
that,
And
yeah, that's a big
Judon, I mean, he hasn't gotten he's only had 1.5 sacks, but still, I mean, I still like that. I think he'll come into his own as well.
mhm. I don't think the Falcons really have the best defense.
No.
Um, they brought in Jesse Bates, they brought in Matt Judon, which are good players. Caden Ellis is playing really, really good football. Um, I think on offense they're really dynamic because they have multiple receivers. Drake London was we were at the draft and Drake London was the first pick of receivers. And I
Yeah,
was like, he's
yes, that's
probably
right,
the
we were
best
in
one.
Vegas for that draft.
He's probably the best receiver that was on the board, and yet alone he was. And Darnell Mooney, who was just rotting with the Bears, is given another shot. I think he had like $30 million contract per year. 20, no, not 30 million. Like
I was gonna say, wait a
20,
second.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
I think
think
it was
look that
3
up.
for
Let
30
me
or
look.
something. I'll
Yeah,
look it
or
up while you're
yeah,
talking, but, I believe it was 3 for 30, but I'll look it up, but if you wanna keep going.
yeah, Bears fans are saying he's not really good, but it's kind of maybe you just need a new situation.
It was 3
Uh,
for 39, so
well,
13
yeah,
a
yeah.
year. So,
So,
still.
they have two great running backs, Algier and Bijan, which kind of reminds me of the Lions. Kind of switch it up with the goal line work with Montgomery, goal line work with Algier, and they have a really good O line. So I like it. I like what I'm seeing from the Falcons.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it looks like they're primed to have a home playoff game, so it's all about seeding and what seed can they get? Similar to the Texans, they're in a very actually they're in like the honestly identical spot with the Texans right now. I mean, they kind of control their destiny, and it's really just like what seed can you get? So, but let's move on. We got the Bills beating the Dolphins, moving to 7-2 after a 30-27 game. Josh Allen, another great performance, the 3 touchdowns. I mean, the offense didn't do a whole lot here. They didn't need to. And then on the Dolphins side, I mean, Tua's back. He looked pretty good here. He had obviously 2 touchdown passes. A Chain had a massive game here. So it seems like with Tua coming back, it's been good for A Chain. Tyreek was 4 for 80. I mean, still not happy with that. Only 5 targets, but that also might be a little bit of the Buffalo's played him so many times at this point that they're like, hey, we're not going to let this guy beat you. So I think that's more of the Bills just completely trying to take him out and letting a guy like A Chain beat you than it is Tyreek kind of into a not being on the same page. But what do you think about all this?
Yeah, it was a great game, and it finished really well with Tyler Bass. That was
Yeah,
awesome.
what was that? That was like 62 yards or whatever. After he missed an extra
Something
point, he
like
comes
that.
back for the win.
So he
So
doinked it off the post, and then he missed an extra point, and he comes
yeah, that
back
was a loud
cold
doink.
blooded, and that was awesome. Like I, it was at the end of the game. I wasn't really watching. I think I was like making food or something. I missed it. I looked back on like my ESPN app, and he's like game winner. I was like, that was electric. But a lot of bad calls. I feel like in this game by the ref.
Yeah.
Osiris Torrance got called for a terrible holding call. That was really bad. And Jordan Poyer, he did a unnecessary roughness, kind of backed up the
Well, some of these players like that was a penalty. Like they're just dumb. Like
yeah,
Like, it's like you don't need to do that. Like, they're not gonna catch the ball. You can still, like, get a big hit in there without, like, ramming into their head. So, some of these
yeah.
players just shoot themselves in the foot. And I mean, it was in that game. We saw it in the Lions game with Brian
Lions game,
Branch, which
Brian
we'll get into
Branch.
more
That
later.
was that was like Vegas. Like Vegas made the call bad. That was like terrible. You don't throw him out after that.
Yeah, it was weird. It was very weird.
Mhm.
Um, but let's move on. The Bengals get a huge win here, much needed for them. They win 41-24. I mean, they're kind of showing why this offense is dynamic. Burrow, 5 touchdowns here. I mean, dude's at a 20-4 touchdown to interception ratio, so he's really been slinging the rock around. It's just that they haven't been amazing this year. Obviously, the defense still has their issues. I mean, they looked pretty solid for the most part, but still, it's the Raiders, so they've yet to show that like when it comes to an elite offense that they can actually step up and play a good game. They've only looked good against that. But some unlikely heroes for the Bengals as well. I mean, Chase Brown, 27 for 120. Zach Moss was inactive, and now he's going to miss some significant time with an injury. There's no, return table for him. So Chase Brown seems to have the backfield completely locked up. Actually, was the only running back to get a carry in this game. So that's nice to see if you took the shot on him, with him having over the 150 all-purpose and the touchdown. And Gesicki was 5
Gesicki,
for 102,
I
so
was
that's
gonna
nice. And then on the Raiders side of things, Minshew was benched again. Ritter came in, threw a touchdown, but that was in garbage time. Bowers got the garbage time touchdown. So for fantasy, that's great. And Jacoby Myers was 8 for 105. But it does seem like, the Raiders, the wheels are falling off. They're going to be drafting a quarterback. So it really comes down to, do the Raiders want to even see if there's something in Desmond Ritter? O'Connell's out, so he's out. I mean, they've moved back from Minshew a couple times now. This is not the first time they've benched him this year mid game. So I think I wouldn't be shocked at all if next week if Desmond Ritter is the starter. But what do you think here? What are your biggest takeaways from this game?
Yeah, my player of the game was Trey Hendrickson with 4 sacks. So
Oh, I didn't even talk about that. Yeah, that's a good
he
catch.
was he was awesome. Like he's showing why he's one of the best pass rushers in the league. I know last year he was going up against Fred Johnson, who um, was starting for Jordan Mailata, but yeah, he was awesome yesterday. And for the Raiders, it is getting bad. You fire your offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy, who you brought in, which is like your guy. That's like your best friend coming in. You're like, kick rocks after 9 weeks. You fire your O line coach, James Craig. You fire your QB coach, Rick Scarlangio? I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know who that is, but your QB coach, your OC, and your O line coach are out. Um, it's looking bad in Vegas right now. So
Yeah. That's to say.
I don't know.
That might be an understatement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the wheels are falling off completely. So, and
But
now
they
Trey Hendrickson's is also
yeah,
leading the league in sacks. He went from 7 to first. He's at 11. The next closest is Dexter Lawrence at 9. So he's a name that, with a lot of the big name guys not really being healthy or putting up the production we're used to seeing, that like, well, wait a second, like, could he win Defensive Player of the Year? I mean, I know we were talking last week, could Dexter Lawrence, but Trey Hendrickson's like, wait, I'd like to enter my name in the conversation.
yeah. But the Raiders do have a bright spot in Brock Bowers. I mean, that guy's awesome.
Yes. Yeah,
I love
no, I
Brock
was
Bowers
completely
so much.
wrong on him
Yeah.
in the sense I didn't think he would break out this soon. I wasn't doubting the talent, but it's pretty rare. Like outside of Sam Laporta last year, like we haven't seen rookie tight ends be this good right away. Like a lot of them, took a year or two to really break out. So, maybe it's time to get rid of that narrative. And hey, just because they're drafted and get a starting role doesn't mean they can't be productive because he's the guy there, especially that Adams is gone now. Like he is the guy. So
Mhm.
it'll be interesting to
And
see him develop throughout the season.
hey, Max Crosby, pick up the phone, bro. Come to Philly. Let's see it.
Yeah, yeah,
Bryce
name
Huff's
that's
not
been
looking
talked
out, so
about for sure. He's a name
yeah.
that'll be a very hot topic. I mean, I know Mark Davis came out and said like he's not leaving, but if the offer's right and a tanking team, like how do you say no?
Yep.
But let's move on. Chargers 27, Browns 10. The clock struck to midnight with Jameis Winston. He went back to kind of the Jameis Winston we've seen throughout his career, where it's like one week he's looks like he's a top five quarterback, and then the next week it's like, this is why this guy was a backup. I mean, 235 and one, but the three picks, the Browns really didn't look good at all. I mean, obviously Tillman 6 for 75 and one, so that's a nice, bright spot seeing him develop. And then on the Chargers side of things, I mean, Herbert 282 and two, J.K. Dobbins 85 yards on the ground, averaging 6.1 a carry with the two touchdowns, and then Quentin Johnston 4 for 118 and one. It's been nice to see him kind of take that next step, I guess, in a sense, from year one to year two. I mean, the yards still aren't there in the catches, but I mean, he's up to 282 and four touchdowns. So at least he's starting to progress where last year it didn't look great. So at least he's showing some flashes this year that it's not, a total bad pick.
Yeah. Such a tough loss for the Browns. You felt that they were back from last week,
Yeah.
and they just look so dead. They just look so defeated. Chargers are playing really good football right now. And Justin Herbert, it looks like he has a defense. It looks like he has a running game. Receivers might not be there, but it was always kind of the ifs with Justin Herbert. And I don't know. He's kind of heating up right now. I still do think they need another receiver, though.
Oh, 100% they do. They 100% do. I mean, you're not going to. you're not gonna be able to
Hayden
beat some of these
Hurst is
teams in
not
the
going to
playoffs
cut
without any
it.
firepower.
Yeah, Hayden Hurst is not going to cut it. Josh Palmer is not going to cut it. Vlad McConkey, I think, is really good. He's going to be really good next year. He's going to be really good years coming up. But you need another receiver, please, just for Justin Herbert's sake.
Yeah. No, I mean 100%. I know some popular names have been floated around. I saw like Mike Williams maybe reunited there. I know they were talking about Deontay Johnson, but obviously he went to
Yeah.
Baltimore.
Darius
Um,
Slayton.
yeah,
Darius
I mean
Slayton.
they got DJ Chark
Maybe
too, who's
T.
been
Higgins. I
injured.
was gonna. Yeah, I was gonna say if T. Higgins, if they kind of kept on losing, I was gonna say, all right, T. Higgins, like we can't pay you. We're gonna give the max to Jamar Chase. Like you can go. We drafted Jermaine Burton, but I don't know. I feel like they do need someone else.
And speaking of Jermaine Burton, I never followed up with it, but I saw like a weird report that he was inactive and they were gonna like talk about it after the game or something. So something weird happened with him. So probably a disciplinary thing. I don't know if you got that report on Sleeper before the game, but
I have no idea. I just know like Joe Burrow was a little pissed at him when he was sitting next to him. He just told him to stand up. So I have no
yeah,
idea.
I see Zach. Um, Zach Taylor came out and said that he'll have a good career about speaking about Burton, but has to handle business the right way. So that just tells you, I mean, there's some stuff going on in that locker room where he's just, not being a team guy or whatever, and the coaches aren't happy with the way he's acting or what he's saying. So, but the talent's definitely there. But let's move on. Let's talk about a game that went into overtime between two shitty teams. Titans beat the Patriots 20-17. I mean, their defense looked great. Mason Rudolph, kind of shows why, like, hey, he's not going to put you over the edge, but he's not going to lose you games and make those stupid mistakes that we kind of seen Will Levis do.
Yeah.
Tony Pollard had a big game here went for 128. Ridley had a solid game as well. And then on the Pats side of things, I mean, Drake May had the bad turnover in overtime. But prior to that, I mean, he let him downfield to even send it there. So, you got to see some nice flashes. I mean, 95 yards on the ground also, that's very nice to add some stuff with your legs. So, I mean, looking at that right there, I mean, Drake may be a guy to look at in your fantasy leagues as well. I mean, I know I was talking about Bonex and what he's been doing, but maybe Drake May's a guy to scoop up too. I mean, so far it seems like all these rookie quarterbacks that have played outside of Rattler have really showed some flashes. Um, but yeah, what are some of your takeaways from this? I'm really curious to see like what you think of May so far as well.
Yeah. So I was actually in UNC Chapel Hill this weekend. I was visiting my
Ooh,
friends, and there were so many Drake May jerseys out. We went to a sports bar, Bob's. If you're ever in UNC Chapel Hill, go to Bob's. We watched the what's that? The FSU UNC game, and I think it was like 40 to the final score was like 40-20 UNC won.
yeah,
And Omarion Hampton,
yeah. I
running
saw
back for
he
UNC,
cooked.
he had like 5 touchdowns and like 300 all-purpose yards. And the funny thing is, every time like I go somewhere, like another school, someone just goes crazy. Like I visited my sister at JMU. Ben DiNucci throws for 7 touchdowns, like 500 yards. Omarion Hampton goes for 5 touchdowns, 300 yards. Kyle Monangai last year goes for like 200 yards, something like that. So a lot of people were hyping up Drake May. A lot of Drake May jerseys were out. So that was really cool to see. Um, I think with the Patriots, they should have went for two at the end of
Yeah,
the game.
I saw that take floated around a lot.
And Gerard
Um,
Mayo calling his team soft last week, a couple weeks ago, and then not going for two. Like, dude, what are we doing here? You know, Drake May looked really good for the Titans. Um, Good win, I guess. You're kind of just lowered your draft stock, but I feel like, or I think, uh, Tony Pollard, Calvin Ridley are your guys. You gotta get them the football. Um, Starting to heat up a little bit, and they have good defense. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, if you're a Patriots fan, I mean, you don't want them to win a ton of games, but you're definitely pleased with kind of how Drake May's come along so far. And it was good to see him play because obviously he suffered the concussion against the Jets. So it was definitely refreshing to see that he was able to get on the field, not miss any time. Because, this is what you want to see. Nobody wants to watch the Jacoby Brissett show. You want to watch the Drake May show, get to see
Exactly.
your quarterback really develop. I mean, he sat to start the year, he got to learn, and so far it's been paying off, letting him sit a little bit and kind of play on. So, but let's talk about another rookie quarterback. Jaden Daniels and the Commanders get it done against the Giants. They win 27-22. Commanders have to be the biggest surprise this year. I think that's a no doubter there. 7-2, already cashing their team total for wins this season. I know I only had them winning like 6 or 7 games, so they seem primed to be a double-digit win team, and they're right in the thick of things with the Eagles. I mean, they're actually up a half a game right now. Um, Daniels obviously had a good game, didn't need to do a lot, but got the job done. Brian Robinson was ruled out right before the game, so Austin Eckler kind of stepped in and had a big game here. On the Giants side of things, I mean, I know a lot of people saw that graphic floating around. Daniel Jones had 4 completions on 6 attempts for 0 yards and a passing touchdown at
Appreciate it.
halftime. But you know what? He ended up putting up a decent fantasy performance, and finally got some touchdowns at home. I mean, he counted for 3. So I was impressed with Jones. Theo Johnson, it was nice to see him finally get in. I mean, he's an athletic freak, so hopefully he kind of continues to get more and more involved on a team that doesn't have a lot of weapons. And Malik Neighbors didn't have any catches at half, and then he goes for 9 for 59 in the second half. So you'd like to see the Giants get him more involved early on and not kind of wait till the second half to be like, hey, like our talented rookie wide receiver, like maybe we should get him some looks. Maybe we shouldn't go into halftime with him not having a catch. Like that's never going to win you a game. So I think with them, it was a little too late to turn it around. Um, but Giants draft a quarterback. Move on next year. And the Commanders, I mean, hey, just keep riding the high. I think the Commanders fans are already way happy with the season, and it's all just like extra gravy at this point. But what do you think about the Commanders so far as an Eagles fan? Like, are you worried about them?
Um, I'm a little worried. Jane Daniels playing really good football right now as a rookie. I felt like they were gonna have a little bit of a hangover from last week because we saw the Bears have a little hangover against the Cardinals, but they're a good football team. They're well coached. Cliff Kingsbury with the air raid offense, bringing it to DC, and Austin Eckler, like what a bang for your buck like signing. He looked really good yesterday. Um, as for the Giants, let's give it up for Daniel Jones for throwing a touchdown at MetLife.
Yeah,
Let's
not
go.
one, but two, and rushed one too.
Oh, there
So I
we
mean,
go. Two. Actually, he did have one week one, for Van Ginkel.
oh yeah, fair.
So there you go. So all their graphics are a little skewed right there. But
Yeah, yeah,
for the Giants, I just feel bad. Actually, I don't know. Not real bad, but
I don't know. They just got to rebuild. That I mean, they just got to,
I don't know what to do. Like
it
even
is what it is
I'm
this
trying to put
year.
myself in like the GM shoes, but I just don't know what to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's Daniel Jones's
Yeah.
contract's easy to get out of this year, so you finally go draft a quarterback. You rip the band-aid off that you slapped on with Daniel Jones for the past 6 years, and you say, you know what, he's not it. He'll never be it. Like maybe he could be a backup in this league, but he's not our starter. So it's time to move on. And
Yeah.
speaking of moving on, let's get into the Panthers and the Saints. I mean, probably one of the biggest upsets. One I predicted. Finally, they get it done 23-22. Saints, another team that you just got to rip the band-aid off and rebuild, draft a quarterback. Kamara did have the 155 or over 200 all-purpose yards and 6 catches as well. So, good game for him. On the Panthers side of things, I mean, Bryce Young's looked good the past 2 weeks, really starting to show some flashes. So maybe that time off was good for him. Chuba Hubbard still dominating that backfield. We'll see when Jonathan Brooks comes back, but at least for this week, he had the 72 yards and 2 touchdowns. And, Xavier Legette, another week, another touchdown. So he's looking to be one of the more underrated rookies. Hasn't been talked about a lot this year, but, he's got 26 catches. He's got 4 touchdowns. So, I think he'll continue to blossom a little bit without Adam Thielen and obviously Johnson being traded away. But what are your biggest takeaways here, especially on the Panthers side of things? Because I know we talked about the Saints a lot already.
Panthers played their best game defensively all year, which is a good sign. They were not
Yeah.
playing football, very bad football. And Bryce Young looked better. Like he kind of looked like a first overall pick just a little bit. But I got a question for you. Do you start him next week?
Bryce Young?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I don't think there's a point in going back to Andy Dalton. This is not a playoff team.
Mm.
I mean, do you really think this team can go on a big win streak? No. No, I mean, at
wanna
best, I'd say this is a 6-win team. At best, they maybe go, what do they got left? They got 8 games. At best, they say they go 4-4. and that would be like their ceiling. I think
That's
this
what I
is
said. I said start him. First
who,
overall pick.
Dalton?
No,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, I think Young's the starter for the rest of the year. It would make no sense unless it's injury related and he has to miss time. I don't think there's a reason, how no matter how bad he is. I mean, there's just no point.
yeah,
You know,
he's looking better.
this is his chance. You need to know too. You need to know over this last 8 games, like, do we want to give him a third year or do we want to trade him or do we want to draft someone? Because they're going to be in a position that they can take a quarterback. So,
Mhm.
but also on top of that, like if they're satisfied with him, like they're also going to be in a position where a lot of teams we've already highlighted like need to take a quarterback. So, they'll be in a spot where they can kind of recoup some of that capital that they spent to get Bryce Young by trading back. So, it'll be interesting. I mean, it's just a damn shame that he struggled so much, but I don't fully blame him because they really haven't given him enough talent. I mean, they kind of did this year. They obviously, got the guards and Hunt and Lewis, and they tried to get Deontay Johnson and Adam Thielen, and they drafted Leggett, but we haven't seen Brooks. They already traded away Johnson, and Thielen's been hurt all year, so he really hasn't had his full cast of guys yet. Not that that might matters, but I don't know. I do feel for him. I do.
I love Leggett. I love that accent. That accent.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Arrogance. Love that.
But, let's move on to the next game here. Um, the Ravens dominated the Broncos 41-10 here. I mean, Lamar Jackson looking like an MVP candidate again, 280 and 3. Derrick Henry 106 and 2. I mean, the dude's already got over 1,000 rushing yards this year, and over 11 rushing touchdowns. I remember Jared Crampton saying, "Is Derrick Henry 10 and a half rushing touchdowns a lock?" Yeah, it is. It didn't even take him 10
That
games to
should have
do
been
it.
like way up. I don't know how you stop the Lamar and Derrick Henry like read option.
Yeah.
I feel like
No, I
that's
mean, that's
unstoppable. I knew that coming in. I'm like, you cannot guard that. So the over,
yeah,
I
no,
should have bet
that's
that.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And then on the
It was,
Broncos side of
it was
things, I
good.
mean, Bo Nix had a solid game. I mean, you'd like to see a little bit more. I mean, he had the pick, but he
He
just
caught-
looked uncomfortable. They
Did
were
you
just
see that catch he
outclassed.
made? That
He did, yeah, he did have a
that
touchdown
was
catch
awesome. And he
and had
spiked the ball.
36
That was
yards on the
sick.
ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cortland, and the thing is, Cortland Sutton now, I mean, 2 weeks ago, he had 0 for 0. And then, they made a conscious effort. And in the past 2 weeks, he's got over 100 yards and been targeted over 10 times in each game. So it seems like they're making a conscious effort there. So that should be a guy that maybe you want to target in fantasy. I mean, he is Bo Nix's favorite target. Also, they did come out today. So for those listening, and you're going to be waivers are going to run on Wednesday. Sean Payton came out and said Audric Estime is gaining a bigger role. I mean, Javante clearly not the guy, hasn't been the same since his injury. So if Estime's out there in your leagues, go pick him up. It could be similar to the Tyrone Tracy thing where, one of those rookie lottery picks that you took late in the draft do cash in. So definitely got to target in the waiver cycle.
Yeah. My big takeaway was the Ravens offensive line. They look so dominant. And coming into the year, that was a question mark for them. A lot of new guys on the offensive line. We saw it
Yeah.
week one. They were getting manhandled by Chiefs, it felt like, for the whole game. They look good. I really thought they were the best group from the whole weekend, and it was really cool to see. Derrick Henry's a beast. I love that. Um, I do want to know, why doesn't the Titans letting go Derrick Henry kind of not get the same like criticism than Saquon with the Giants?
Yeah, I mean that is a good point.
They weren't paying a quarterback.
Yeah, that one's a little weird to me. I guess because
Like, I've
Henry
heard
kind of
nothing. Yeah,
Henry was a little bit older and it wasn't like he really I don't think he wanted to
I guess.
stay
Yeah, I guess.
anyway.
Yeah,
I think he kind of wanted out where it was like Saquon wanted to be a Giant for life, but I guess it's also the media. But that is a good point. That is a very good point. And probably a lot of it is it's not like Derrick Henry went to the Houston Texans or the Jaguars. I think maybe if he went to a division rival, there'd be more flack for it. But that is a good point you bring up. That really is. I didn't even give that any consideration, but that's valid. I will say. But speaking
yeah.
of another running back leaving, let's move on to your Eagles and
I
also
got
getting
one.
some of the four
I got
o'clock
one thing
window.
for the Broncos.
Oh, what do you got?
Yeah. So my fantasy steal was the Broncos defense, but they got absolutely shredded. It was bad. -3 fantasy points. They actually did negative. So
Yeah, I
they
mean, I
will be
wouldn't be
going
too
to
worried
waivers
about that.
because the next 2 weeks they play the Chiefs and the Falcons. So
Yeah.
thank you Broncos for your time on my fantasy team, but good riddance.
Yeah, probably time to get rid of those fellas. But
Yeah,
let's move on. We're in the 4 o'clock slate now. Your Eagles get the win, 28-23. Jalen Hurts, had another good game, and you know what? I was saying it a couple weeks ago, and ever since I've kind of been harping on this, it seems to be working. Like Jalen Hurts should be doubled. You should have double the carries for the team to his passing attempt. Like Kellen Moore and the past couple coordinators he's had since Steichen have really tried to make him into a pocket passer and like rely on him throwing it like 40 times a game. And it seems like the recipe for the Eagles is keep him under 30 attempts and have almost 50 rushing attempts, and like you will win games. He'll chew that clock. Saquon, obviously the 27 for 159 and one, had the sick hurdle, also added one in the air as well, almost 200 scrimmage
that
yards.
was
Devontae
insane.
Smith, 87 for one. I know AJ Brown left the game with a knee injury. It sounds like it's not too serious, so you hope he'll be back next week. But where they're at right now. But then again, it's a division game, so it's tough. But at 6-2, they may err on the side of caution and be like, bigger days ahead. And then the Jaguars side of things, Trevor Lawrence looked terrible. I mean, Bigsby, ETN both looked terrible. Didn't do much. I mean, Bigsby did get more touches, so for a fantasy perspective, that's something to be noted that, we weren't sure what it would look like when he got healthy, but it does seem like Bigsby is kind of the main guy now with ETM being the change of pace guy. But I'm curious, what are your thoughts? What are your biggest takeaways from your Eagles win?
That Saquon Barkley reverse jump was the coolest thing I've ever seen. In the
Yeah.
Kelly Greens, that was like I don't think that's ever gonna be done. Like again, Madden didn't even have that in the game.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I don't even,
in
that
the
was so weird.
LeBrons was tough. The
I've never
LeBron
seen
streak.
something like that. Never. I mean, that was incredible. So,
And I
but
will add, Saquon Barkley had a lot of like great blocks that if it were Kenny Gainwell or Will Shipley in the game, they're letting them go by. Jalen Hurts is getting sacked, he's getting fumbled. So that's something I want to like harp on is Saquon Barkley as a blocker is just a major upgrade of whatever we had from last year with Swift. So
yeah. No, I mean, he's looked solid, dude. He really has. He's looked solid. When and obviously the defense is starting to look better and better. I mean, you got to temper expectation, or I mean, you got to temper the like look of it a little bit. Um, obviously the score looks worse than it was, but the defense really did dominate in this game. I mean, they didn't have a lot offensively. It was a weird fluky defensive touchdown, which that one too. I mean, it did look like he kind of tripped over the lineman, but I don't know. I don't know. What did you think about that? That was very weird to me. The play I'm talking about where he got like tripped up and fumbled, and the Jaguars just picked it up and scored. Like what?
oh
What
yeah,
was?
that was not a fumble because he touched him down. He was on his way down after that. But
That was
yeah, that was a
weird.
little weird. I didn't get that one. Um, the refs, that's just what it is. But I do feel like Eagles are playing really good under Vic Fangio. That defense, we have some really elite linebacker play like we haven't seen in previous years. Zach Bond is we saved him from the Saints, thank God, from the last year. Nakobe Dean, he's playing really well, game-winning interception. If he doesn't make that play, we lose 100%. Um,
Oh yeah, no, that was a great pick.
that
That
was
was a great
awesome.
interception.
Um, the Georgia guys, Nakobe Dean, star. Jalen Carter, star. Jordan Davis, star. He might not get the sacks, but he's a run stopper. Um, Keely Ringo, kind of deep backfield or a deep defensive backfield. So he's not really getting the start, but I feel like he's going to be really good. Nolan Smith, kind of heating up a little bit. So all those Georgia guys are panning out as opposed to last year. They didn't look too hot, but
No, not at all.
yeah. So it was
All
a really
right,
cool
well,
game in the Kelly Greens. That was awesome.
yeah, no, I mean the Eagles seem to be, really in the thick of that playoff race, and they're a team that, it's a tough division matchup, but they could end up at. It's funny they could end up as a 1 seed in the NFC, or they may end up being a
Or a
6 or 7
wild card.
seed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right
right now
now
they are a wild card. That's what I'm
they're
saying.
a
There's so
wild
many
card,
outcomes for them right now.
and they'd be on the road against Arizona right now. So
Yeah, that
not
would
good.
be an interesting one.
Yeah.
But let's move on. The Cardinals get it done. Speaking of Arizona, 29-9, dominated the Bears in this. I mean, they really made Caleb Williams look uncomfortable, sacked him 6 times. I think they said I heard a stat that 16 different players had a pressure on him. And the craziest thing about that is, I mean, they only passed, like Caleb said earlier, they only had 154 passing yards, but they had a 213 on the ground. I mean, really ground and pounded it down the Bears' throats. And, offensively for the Bears, I mean, not a whole lot of takeaways. I mean, it was nice to see a Dunze get over 100 yards for this game. But outside of that, I mean, the defense didn't look amazing, and the offense looked uncomfortable. And I know the Bears haven't even played a division game yet. But also on top of that, they're 0-4 on the road this year and 4-0 at home. I think, and I might be wrong, but I think Matt Eberflus is like one of the worst records out of any coaches ever, like on the road. But the fact that he's 0-4 on the road, or maybe it's the longest losing streak on the road out of like a coach or something. But you know, it is funny how they're 4-0 at home and 0-4 on the road. So maybe that's the recipe with the Bears. If they at home, bet them. If they on the road, fade them.
Yeah. Eberflus, I don't think they fire him. Their owner
No,
has never fired a coach midseason, but he's completely lost their locker room. DJ Moore just quitting on his team. Did you see that?
no, I didn't actually. What happened with that?
So it was a Caleb Williams, like USC running around play, and
Hmm.
DJ Moore, it was like a third down, comes back to the ball, hitch route, comes back to the ball, and he's near the sideline and just walks off. So
Huh? That's
yeah,
weird.
look that up after. It was crazy. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah,
But
that is wild.
the team has just completely just lost faith in Eberflus or whatever it is, and
Yeah,
the Cardinals took advantage. That was awesome to see. They got a lot of pressure. Um, Last year they were the worst defensive line in football, but last year got a lot of pressure and could see a little reunion of Ojulari from the Giants coming on over to link up with his brother BJ Ojulari. So
yeah. I mean, if the Cardinals, I mean, at 5-4, they should be buyers at the deadline for sure.
they have a lot of cap space and a lot of draft picks.
They
So
should be
I just want to
buyers.
see it. Absolutely. Yeah. And Robinson coming back. I don't know why I didn't play this week, but he's coming back next week. I think
Oh,
the first round pick out of Mizzou.
for the car. Oh, the edge rusher. Yes, yes. Yes, that'll be nice. I'm sorry, I don't know why I was blanking out. Um, yeah, no, I mean the Cardinals will need it, and that'll be a very interesting matchup between them and the Jets next weekend. I mean, both teams really can't afford to lose because obviously with the Cardinals, I mean, you want to be one of those playoff teams, so you just got to keep winning. But let's move on here. The Lions get it done again, 24-14 here against their division rivals in Green Bay, in the Green Bay Packers. The Lions now 7-1. I mean, just looked dominant in this game. I mean, shitty weather. So obviously, neither quarterback looks super comfortable. Obviously, Montgomery and Gibbs had big games here. St. Brown had a handstand and a touchdown, as you highlighted earlier.
That was awesome.
Um, and the thing is, they didn't even sack Love once. That's the craziest part. So, I still think the Lions are a team that should be looking for edge rush help. On the Packers side of things, I mean, Josh Jacobs had a good game. This was Jaden Reed's week. Obviously, with the Packers, you never know whose week it's going to be, but this week it was Reed. Um, yeah, just a weird one. Just a weird one. But what are your thoughts from this? Are the Packers, not in the same echelon, or do you think it was a lot to do with Love's health and the injury or in the weather?
That was my lock of the week, the Lions. I
No.
thought they were just the more dominant team. Packers, Jordan Love didn't look sharp, I will say. Didn't look like he is a $60 million quarterback. Lions, Kirby Joseph, another interception, pick six. That was cool. Um, yeah, it was just dominant. And I know the Lions lost Hutchinson, but they're still getting pressure. Might not get the sacks, but they just have a really good defense, and the offense is basically unstoppable. Like Ben Johnson's cooking right now. So
Yeah, no, I mean that Ben Johnson will get it. Let's be honest here. Ben Johnson will be a NFL head coach next season. Like somebody's going to pay him.
take the
I know
job, bro. Like the
obviously
head
he had
coach
some
job. Yeah.
yeah, he had some crazy demands I know this offseason. Like he would have been a head coach if he wanted it.
A lot.
Obviously, I guess nothing met his standards, but somebody will pay him. He will
I
get
will
what he
say
wants.
a lot of offensive coordinators just like to stay at the offensive coordinator position.
That's
Um,
true. Not everyone's a head
they
coach.
don't want the head coach role. They don't want everything coming with it. They just like calling plays, and they don't want the heat that comes with the head coach gig. So
No, that's very true. I mean, not everybody's head coach material, so we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how that unfolds in the offseason because he'll be by far the most popular name floated around, in my opinion.
easily, easily, he's been doing
But
it for 3 straight years.
yeah, and yeah, I mean, the offense is only getting better and better every year. It seems like. Um, but let's move on here. Uh, The Rams beat Seattle in overtime, 26-20. Stafford had a big game here. Kyron Williams finally didn't score a touchdown. His streak ends, but you know what? It's all right. It was the Cooper Cup show, 11 for 104. And Demarcus Robinson, 6 for 94 and two, back-to-back weeks of two touchdowns. Who had that on their bingo card?
Yep.
Obviously, Puka Nacua got ejected for throwing a punch early. So for those of you who, didn't start him last week and got burned. Now you started him this week and got burned. So you've been on the wrong end of it, both sides. But, not a smart play by Nakua, but you know what? He was already banged up coming into this matchup. So maybe it's not the worst thing for him. And then on Seattle, I mean, Gino had a good game, but I still don't believe in him long term. Kenneth Walker, obviously the 83 yards. But the biggest story, no DK, no problem. JSN 7 for
JSN
180
went
and two.
crazy.
That's insane. But he's up there with all the like top receivers right now in terms of numbers. I mean, he's top 10 in with 50 catches, and then he's tied for 12th with 568 yards. So, he's a guy that seems like he may be locking in his first 1,000 yard season as a receiver.
Yeah. What a tough way to lose here, the Seahawks. That was
Yeah.
just heart wrenching. That was tough. Um, Rams didn't look that good all game, but towards the end, they just clicked on all cylinders. The game-winning touchdown. Um, yeah, it's just a tough way to lose. The pick six for
Yeah, that's
who
the
was the
thing.
pick
Gino
six?
had
That was he threw it to
Gino.
him twice, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's my whole point. Like, yeah, like for a fantasy brain, you see that and you're like, oh, 363 yards and three touchdowns. Yeah, but he threw 2 picks in the red zone, one of them for pick
Crucial.
6.
You can't you
Um,
can't you can't expect to win and
oh,
turn it over.
Kitchens, yeah, he threw 2 to
You're
Kitchens, but one of them was returned for a touchdown. Like, the Seahawks should have won this game. Like, if Geno's smarter with the ball, even if you only get field goal drives, I mean, that was a 10-point swing at minimum there. I mean, it could have been a 14-point swing. So not ideal. I mean, I really have been down on the Seattle, their defense. Like, I
Yeah,
don't
they're
believe
just
in them. I
not
don't
good.
think Geno's good. And they got a really tough stretch coming up. I mean, they got the 49ers on the road, then they got the Cardinals, Jets, Cardinals, Packers, Vikings, Bears, Rams. So I mean, every team I
Oh,
just listed there, like there's not
they
one team.
actually cooked.
Yeah, there's not one team left that they have that like isn't in the playoff picture. And even the Jets, like that's the only team below 500 they have left, and like they're a lot better than their record show. So like there is a realistic world where like Seattle loses out. Like they won't, but I mean they've lost. Uh, they're 1-5 in their last 6 games, and I think it's just going to get worse and worse. So I think don't be shocked. I've been saying it like if we see Sam Howell at all, and like honestly, I think that's a sneaky good bet. Whatever their win total is for like live betting on like a DraftKings or a FanDuel, like take their under. Like they're gonna lose a lot of games.
Yeah, my rookie of the year bet was Terrion Arnold, which didn't play through, but Jared Verse was my other one. So he's looking like a beast right now. What a draft pick that was.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I
Braden
mean,
Fisk.
yep,
That was
yep.
awesome. Getting two
Yeah,
FSU guys.
that is a cool story that they were, able to put 2 teammates together, in Verse and Fisk. And both guys looked good. I mean, that defense is, a
They
very
look
young
like
defense, but
they
I
look
think
like
they'll
veterans
continue
out
to
there.
come into their own as the season progresses.
Yeah.
But it was, because obviously Colby Turner too, a guy who really balled out last year in his rookie year. So, very young guys, but it's nice to see the improvement. And they got a couple guys like Verse has got 3.5, Turner's got 4, Fisk has got 3. So they're starting to really hone in there. So I'm excited to see the growth throughout the season. But let's move on to the Sunday night football game and our last recap of the night. Right now, at the time of this recording, the Chiefs currently lead the Bucks 10-7, but we'll get into that on the predictions pod later in the week. But the Vikings win 21-13. very weird game. And this, I mean, not a whole lot of offense from the Colts. I mean, they looked terrible the whole game. The defense looked solid, but really not a lot. I mean, it's just weird. Like Flacco didn't really help. He looked just very like nervous and confused and uncomfortable all game. Flores' defense really just had their way with him. I mean, Taylor couldn't get anything going. Michael Pittman has been probably the biggest draft bust out of like anyone I could think of. I mean, there's some other guys you can make a case for, but dude's been healthy. I mean, I know obviously he's dealing with the back injury, but 1 of 14, like just terrible. And on the Vikings side of things, Darnold, another big game for 290 and three. I mean, two picks. You don't love that, but still, it is what it is. Jefferson, 7 for 137. Addison, the 5 for 42 in the touchdown. And then TJ Hawkinson, not a huge game, but he's back. He looked healthy. So, he's a guy that I think will have bigger weeks, the more and more snaps he gets each week.
Yeah, it was kind of a sleeper game. I'm not gonna lie, I fell asleep during it. Like literally
No,
fell
I
asleep.
was getting close too. It was very boring.
Had
Very
work
boring.
had work the next morning, so I was like, "Hey, whoever wins this, it's fine." Like, wasn't the most exciting game, but it came down to the end, right? Where who scored the game-winning touchdown? Was it Addison?
Um,
Or was it just kind of like
no,
a
I believe it was Jalen Nail. No, it was Josh
oh yeah,
Oliver. It was
oh
Josh
Josh.
Oliver. But Naylor had one to take the lead. And then Josh Oliver had the one with 2 minutes left to seal the deal from
Gotcha.
Darnold. It was funny. I mean,
Yeah,
no Jettos. I mean, it was no Aaron Jones. It was all the guys in this game that like. I mean, Addison's obviously a bigger name, but between Oliver and Naylor, like I don't think anyone had those guys scoring this week.
yeah. Do you believe that Anthony Richardson should start for the Colts again after basically
Well,
just
it's
like
funny, they
putting
came out
it
I forgot to say it in the breaking air in the news before, but they did come out and say, like, Joe Flacco is gonna be the starter for the rest of the year. Like, who knows?
wow,
He's saying
really?
that now, but with injuries and if they start to lose games and are out of playoff contention, there's no point in playing Joe Flacco. Like, you know what he is. Like, I still think it's weird, um, to punt the tires this early, but I guess they're maybe like, "Hey, let him sit and learn a little bit." Like, he's clearly hasn't developed as a passer, like, missing all that time last year hurt him, so, give him a
Yeah,
full off season, but I don't know. I mean, I would play him because at the end of the day, like, what's your ceiling with Flacco? Like a wild card team that maybe wins a playoff game. Like you're not going to the Super Bowl with him. The defense isn't good enough. There's not enough weapons. So I would say, give him another week or two and then go back to Richardson. But we'll see what happens. I mean, we really will. And
yeah,
the Vikings, another team. Like I know I talked about the Commanders, but they're one of the other biggest surprises this year. I did thought for sure it would be a rebuilding year, but they obviously got some guys on both sides of the balls, and shame on me for doubting them. I know I thought they would be kind of a 6, 7 win team at best, and they're already like look like they're locked and loaded to be a wild card team and still fight for that division. I mean, they're only a game back from the Lions, and that game was hella close too.
yeah. Brian Flores, do you think he gets a head coaching gig?
I think he'll get interviews. I don't know if he'll get a job. I mean, it really depends how the rest of this year goes. I mean, if he continues to have them playing at a dominant level, then yeah, I think he'll get it. If they start to kind of, get exposed a lot and they're not as dominant as they were looking and teams start to adjust, then maybe not. But I definitely think he'll at least get interviews at the very least. But yeah, so that wraps up our week 9 recap. I mean, this was a little bit of a shorter pod, but obviously not doing the Monday night game because it's going on now. And with the Steelers and 49ers on bye, not as much to talk about. But yeah, crew necks for sale. So, hit me up or one of the other guys and that's involved or, visit our website, place your order today. And then wherever you're listening to this, drop a like, drop a sub, it only helps us grow. So we appreciate you guys listening. Mike, you got any final words for the Felters?
Tough one. Rashad White was the first touchdown scorer.
Yeah. It would have been nice
I
to get
felt like
Rowdy up.
Kareem Hunt was such a lock, you know.
Yeah, and the worst part about it is like we've had White, I think, twice now in Bucks games, and he
No,
didn't hit. So it always hurts a little bit more when you had this guy in previous games in prime time and it didn't hit, and then it hit. So now Kareem Hunt will be the first touchdown scorer in another game where we don't have him. It's
it's
just how it
time.
goes.
It's time to bounce back. We'll be back.
We will be back. That is right. All right,
Yes, sir.
everybody. Thank you for listening. Have a nice night.